Grace and peace, friends, from the Lutheran Theological Southern Seminary. I'm Reverend Dr. Chad Rimmer, Rector and Dean, and it's a joy to share this brief history of our seminary that was founded in 1830 by the South Carolina Synod under the leadership of Reverend John Bachman of Charleston, South Carolina. In his address to the Synod that year, Reverend Bachman drew on the Lutheran tradition of forming educated clergy for the church, perhaps with a smile or a twinkle in his eyes, saying, "Our Savior himself was the instructor of the apostles, yet it was 3 long years before he considered them to be qualified." But on a serious note, 1830 was the year of the Indian Removal Act and the horrors that followed. The socioeconomic system of chattel slavery was in its darkest days, and a young nation was straining with moral and political questions. And at that time, the church sought to establish a school where they could train pastors in context to proclaim the gospel. The first class met in Palmyra, South Carolina, consisted of 5 students and a professor, Dr. John Schwartz, all living, learning, and forming faith together. And as the years passed, the seminary began to serve more synods of the church. Its location moved from various sites across the region, from Palmyra to Lexington to Newberry, Walhalla, South Carolina, up to Roanoke College in Salem, Virginia, back to Mount Pleasant. And across those years, the seminary moved partly due to financial challenges, closures that were forced by the loss of students and the death of faculty, wars and epidemics that threatened our capacity to continue this Lutheran tradition of theological education and formation. During the Civil War, books were spirited away in wheelbarrows to preserve the library and the artifacts of the time. And those that came before us always found a way to persist and discern what it means to be a steward of this gift and call to teach, form, and nurture leaders for public ministry that's been entrusted to us as the church. In 1911, Lutherans came together to build a home for the seminary in the Eau Claire neighborhood of Columbia, South Carolina. The original building held the entire seminary, classrooms, dorms, offices, library, and chapel under one roof in Beam Hall. The seminary began to thrive, growing enrollment, faculty, and expanding partnerships in the campus with Voigt Hall, Christ Chapel, Yost, and the Student Center, the Lineberger Library, as well as the Casey Center and Stavros Lecture Hall, which was the only building named after 2 women, Virginia W. Casey of North Carolina and Francis Stavros of the Florida Bahamas Synod, both faithful leaders dedicated to identifying and equipping leaders to share the gospel of Jesus Christ in a changing world. Today, LTSS continues as a seminary of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America and also serves the Ecumenical Church with formal partnerships with the United Methodist Church, the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship. Students and faculty come from around the country and the globe and include Christian traditions such as African Methodist Episcopal, Presbyterian, Roman Catholic, and more. Since its inception, LTSS has been an ecumenical seminary. In 1831, the first non-Lutheran faculty was hired, the Moravian Dr. Hazelius. And while the Moravians are hardly far outside the Lutheran family, they updated the seminary constitution to include an ecumenical commitment that, quote, "The seminary stands open for the reception of students of all Christian denominations," because ecumenical theological education was important to the social fabric of a young nation. And one could say that it's even more important for our global context today, for students and faculty with different theological perspectives and traditions to study, learn, and be formed in a relational community of learning that is a seedbed for understanding that leads us to justice and peace. In the summer of 2012, the seminary merged with Lenoir-Rhyne University, an ELCA university located in Hickory, North Carolina, and in 2025, LTSS will relocate to that main campus. The move to North Carolina will continue LTSS's 200-year pilgrim journey. Our generation faces new challenges related to sustainability of institutions of higher education, declining numbers of people discerning a vocation to ministry. And while we have things to lament, friends, we have nothing to despair because of the hope that is in us. Being embedded on a campus with a long and rich history of Lutheran higher education, we will be more able to fulfill the seminary's strategic plan that guides the way in which LTSS will lean on our history and continue to nurture educate, and form leaders for public ministry in today's world for the next 200 years.